This article's from the 8th of June this year, and is by Shira Labartov, and it was published in Newsweek. And it's a relatively simple article on the surface. Essentially, an atheist kept a Bible in prison because it was the easiest way to keep records of names and addresses of those she had met inside. I think where the real story in this article is in the censorship prison employ in banning books. The article states that in a 2019 report from nonprofit PEN America, determined that the restrictions in prison constituted the nation's largest book ban. In an unrelated article, an online article about the report from 25th September 2019, published in The Appeal, we're told that the Human Rights Defense Center, which publishes prison legal news, depicted a worsening situation to the Washington Post this month, describing an accelerating clampdown over the last 30 years. HRDC compiled partial or full banned books lists from at least 20 state prison systems this year. The organization found that two of the worst states were Texas, and they had over 10,000 books on its list, and Florida with a list of over 20,000 banned books. The article goes on to say books banned by prison departments routinely include those on the history of slavery or about mass criminalization and incarceration, such as Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, or books about Black liberation movements. I think there's lots to chew on there. So, Scott, do you want to take it?
Sure. Yeah, it was an interesting. I had a chuckle when I was watching the, she had posted what was it, a TikTok video or some one of the online things that the kids are doing nowadays. So she was talking about how, the headline is atheist describes why she kept a Bible in prison all these years, or something along those lines. And you're like, oh, okay, well, she's an atheist. She had a Bible in there. What's going on there or something? And she just needed a way to keep track of her information. She's not, they were not allowed to maintain like address books or, notebooks or anything like that. They couldn't take any of that information if they got moved to a different location or to a different cell or things like that. And so they would use, and apparently they checked with, they did talk to other former inmates as well, and they found that that's not uncommon for inmates to use Bibles to write down information, because they know that those Bibles aren't going to be taken when they try to move. And so that there was a couple of things that brings to mind. First of all, the most important thing there is that their prisoners are being treated poorly. And, this is not news. This is something that we're all familiar with. And so, so to me, that's the main thing. Prisoners aren't allowed to keep books. Prisoners aren't allowed to keep address books. They're not allowed to stay in touch with people. They can't take down, address and telephone information, or if maybe one of their friends that's also an inmate wants them to pass on some information after they leave, and that kind of thing. And, that it just seems, I don't know, it's just inhuman. And it really boils down to the way that they treat the prisoners. And there's just we have a long tradition in the United States of not treating our prisoners very well. We're the most, the most prison aggressive nation in the world. And it's just, it can be very challenging. It can be very, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be very frustrating as somebody looking at it from the outside in, trying to, these are people, these are human beings in there. You need to treat them like human beings. And the bottom line here, though, and this is just a pet peeve of mine, and I could go on and on for this, on and on about this if given time. I know we're on a limited time here, but when it comes to balancing a human being's well-being versus someone else's profit, that's just immoral. And, that goes for prisons for profit. That goes for healthcare for profit. If somebody's making decision about your well-being based off of the bottom line, and, that just seems like that person is not being treated like a human. It's dehumanizing. And it's this dehumanization that goes on that allows the prison administrators, the shareholders, to make decisions like this. They don't, well, they're prisoners, right? They don't need to get a fair wage for their work. They're prisoners. They don't need the luxuries of air conditioning in those prisons in Arizona. They're prisoners. They don't need to see the sun ever. You know, they're prisoners. They don't need to have books. What books are what good upstanding people do. And you know, that's not something that prison, you know, they almost spit the word prisoner out as they say it. And it's I don't know. It's really embarrassing to be part of a society that treats other people like this.
Well, you mentioned it. You said that they don't see them as people; they see them as profits. And yeah, let me criticize a little bit more of this toxic capitalism that reigns as strongly as it does in the USA. Um, in that country, which, by the way, the USA is a country with the most amount of people in jails. And apparently that is related to the fact that jails are privately owned, and thus the owner receive more money while they have more inmates inside. And there are reports and rumors of certain judges sending way too many people, especially Hispanic and Afro-American people, sending them to jail for minor reasons, only because apparently their pockets get bigger whenever they send more people, because the owners of jails are getting more funding due to the amount of people that they have. And yeah, I mean, this atheist was probably one of those victims. She was in jail because she had some weed, I think, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm mistaken, please correct me.
I think it was heroin. I think it was a Tupperware thing full of heroin.
It was a Tupperware of heroin, quote unquote, which I found funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then it wasn't weed. It was way stronger. Okay. Yeah, and I forgot what and what was her big deal? That she just found a loophole with her Bible, as you mentioned. That's it. So, Kelly, I think that you had something important to say about this as well.
I don't know if I have anything important to say. I thought it was funny that, and I've seen it as an internet meme that Americans will use anything as a unit of measurement except for metric units. And here it was again. I mean, how many Tupperwares are in an ounce? I have no idea, right?
That's a shitload full of truth right there, Kelly.
Yeah.
So
that was the one thing that jumped right out at me. But kudos to her for the ingenuity. And I don't know if she came upon this idea independently. I know it is something that happens all the time. I actually did a little bit of research, and I found the story of a World War II veteran, PFC Bill Waits. He was captured by the Germans, and he had a Bible that his mother had given to him to bring to the war because she thought it would stop a bullet for him, right? Well, it never stopped a bullet, but he was able to use the margins inside the Bible to keep a diary while he was in the POW camp. So this is something that actually has a little bit of a history going back. People have been doing this. Little side note, I thought this was kind of funny. I read that POWs captured by the Japanese used the pages of the Bible for cigarette papers. And one of the chaplains who was incarcerated with them said that he didn't really care as long as they got the word of God in them by inhaling it. At least they were getting the word of God inside them. So I thought that was
holy smoke, right?
Yeah, holy smoke, right? Exactly. But I'm glad that these people have at least some way to get around this system that's keeping them from being able to keep these notes. I mean, these are notes for their lawyer, for notes for their court cases. And it seems to me that not allowing them to be able to take these notes with them when they get transferred from place to place it seems inhumane to me that you would not be allowed to build your case for your defense case, right? And I think that illustrates a really bad problem with our prison system, that we're not allowing these people to have these things. And I'm really happy, and as much as I hate religion, I'm really happy these people have a Bible that they can use to do this with, that they have some get around this horrible policy, right?
She Shawshanked it, right? She Shawshanked it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Good
exactly.
movie. Mm-hmm. I guess it's kind of scary that... Oh, just saying quickly, kind of scary that the religion has so much power that the only thing that is allowed in there is a religious tool, and creepy. Richard?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. I think something
Sorry.
is fundamentally wrong when the only book you're allowed to transfer from prison to prison is a religious text.
Absolutely.
It made me wonder too if like all religious texts were treated that way. Does a Quran have the same rights to it that the Bible does? Does a Muslim prisoner get to carry his Quran from place to place?
I mean, the article did make out that was kind of the thing, but I wonder how they're going with things like the Buddhist Tipitaka, which is 11 times longer than the Bible and comes in about 40 volumes. Yeah, how do they get around that?
Put a lot of addresses in that.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, that is going to make good conversation for another episode.